Today's story is not so much about the victim, but the man who figured out the murder and how he went on to literally write one of the world's first books on forensic science. Before we jump back 1,300 years to China's Song Dynasty, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button and let me know in the comments if you want to hear more stories like this. This story begins in a rice field in China. It's just like any other rice field. It's on the edge of this small village. The only difference is this morning, the villagers found their neighbor, yuān, dead in his field. Now, when the local police came over and checked out the body, they couldn't find a murder weapon. They didn't see any signs of struggle, but what they did see was a curved, deep cut on his throat. They ruled out this being an accident because there wasn't anything around him. He was just lying there, dead in the middle of his field. Now, this was a little too much for the police. Nobody had come forward. Nobody saw anything. They knew that a few towns over, there was this guy by the name of Song Cí. He was a magistrate, so he had an official position. He studied both law and medicine. So he was a very well-educated man, and he had this unique thing at the time that was when he would interview people about murders, he would not torture them. Apparently that was common practice back then. He felt that by looking at the facts, looking at what was actually going on, you could better determine what happened than by slapping people around to get the answers. Later that day, Song Cí comes, he arrives on the scene, he sees the man, he sees yuān, he sees the cut on his neck. He doesn't quite know what to make of it. He questions some of the villagers, but that wasn't really getting anywhere. Nobody had seen anything. He went to bed last night, just like normal. He got up the next day, went out to work in his field, according to his wife, and then he was dead. Nobody quite knew what happened. What he thought is, well, I first need to figure out what would cause this wound. It was a deep cut, but it had this unique curve to it. So what he did was he asked the locals to go get him a butchered pig. So they didn't know what was going on, but whatever. They get this pig out, and then he says, okay, bring me a sword, bring me a knife, bring me an axe, bring me a sickle, bring me a hoe, bring me whatever tools that would be common around here. So along the pig, he would take the sword and he would slice at it. That was a straight gash. It was too deep. He would take the knife, he'd cut at it. It was a little too small. He would take the axe, and that was just this big blunt wound in the side of the pig. When he took the sickle, though, he realized that just like how you would swing with a sickle, it made this curved cut that went deep. Right when he did that, everyone who was watching, the local police, everybody, realized that we now have the murder weapon. Now we have to find the murderer, and probably at least half the villagers own a sickle. So what he did was he got the police to bring out all of the villagers who owned a sickle, bring out everyone with their sickle. He lined them up in this long row, and then everyone had to put their sickle down on the ground. Now, this is late summer. It was getting later in the day. It was very hot out. The people are standing around. They're sweating. Some people are kind of shifty-eyed looking around. Some people are just looking down. Some people are like, I don't even know why I'm here. Like, what's the deal? And he said, just wait. Everyone just wait. And he stood there for quite a while. Some flies started to come out. They started to land on a sickle. One sickle in particular, right in front of this guy. This man's name was never recorded. We don't know who he was, but it landed on his sickle. Song Cí comes over and says, the flies seem to like your sickle. The sickle looks clean. I don't see anything on it. It looks like it was It was freshly cleaned, all washed off, but the flies seemed to like it. This man said, "Oh, it was next to some meat in the morning, and I was using it on some manure," and he comes up with all these stories. Song Cí didn't say anything. He just stood there and stared at him for a while. And finally, the man just broke. He said, "Okay, yes, I did it." So what had happened was his farm was right next to Li Wen's farm. And there was this stretch of field that they had always argued on. So Li Wen thought that it was his piece of property and he wanted to grow rice on it. And this other guy thought that it was his piece. And they had had some arguments about that in the past. Nothing too big, but that particular morning, as he described, he just felt this anger come over him, and he didn't even mean to hit him. He just took his sickle and swung it at him, trying to scare him. Unfortunately, it cut his neck, and he immediately dropped to the ground and died. And so this guy fled. Even if the killing had not been planned, the silence that followed made mercy nearly impossible. There was no record of this, but in all likelihood, the man was probably sentenced to death, not out of cruelty, but because justice in that time demanded a life for a life. If he had come forward on his own, the outcome might have been a little different. Song Dynasty law did not treat all killings equally, and genuine remorse, in rare cases, led to a lesser sentence, something like exile, hard labor, or public flogging. But by hiding the truth, letting the village grieve in confusion, and scrubbing the blood from his blade, he made his guilt heavier in the eyes of the court. That case was just one of many that Song Cí would go on to solve. He later compiled his methods into a groundbreaking book called Collected Cases of Injustice Rectified, 洗冤录集证, one of the first forensic textbooks in the world. His work would influence investigations in China, Korea, and Japan for centuries, and many of his insights hold up even today. Song Cí later became a judge in the Song Dynasty's high courts, continued to uphold justice, even as the Song Dynasty suffered from corruption and infighting amongst people before it ultimately fell under Mongol invasion after Song Cí's death. But Song Cí's fame all started here, with a cold murder case, a village full of sickles, and a few buzzing flies that refused to be fooled. Now, I've got a question for you. Are you feeling a little tired? Well, do I have a solution for you? Try Days Coffee, fermented with 50 enzyme complex, only 15% caffeine of a regular cup of coffee, low acidity and gut friendly, and it is made with premium grade coffee beans, freshly roasted in upstate New York. Rich aroma with notes of dark chocolate, butterscotch, brown sugar, and nuttiness. Check out the link in the description below and use our code to get 15% off your order. All right, if you want to hear more stories about Song Cí or any stories about anything, please let me know in the comments below. And until next week, 再见!